I want to paint some minis, but my desk is filled with little projects that I haven't finished. I've got this die here and this little golden die as well that I was making for my dice project. This one will be very special. I made a little spiral as the symbol, and I've got some very interesting plans for this die. But it's just been sat here. I painted it gold and I haven't done anything else with it. And also I've got this guy by Wolpertinger Miniatures. I bought this together with all of the Beekeeper minis that I bought at Berlindicon a while back. And I've got also this die here, which was given to me by my friend Connor, and when I received it, it was already painted in the same color scheme that I am painting now, black with golden skulls. But it wasn't painted to a standard that looked great, so I said, you know what, give it to me. Between this D&D session and the next one, I'll repaint it for you so it looks a little bit nicer, and I'll give it back. And that was several months ago now, I think. So I finally want to get this done. I took my nicest golden paint and just very carefully I highlighted all of these skulls in gold to make them stand out. And I tried to be as neat as possible since the earlier paint job was a little bit messy. But you can see even now I kind of mess up sometimes and I touch some of the borders, but that's okay. I'll clean that up later. Today is all about getting projects finished, so I am allowing myself to be a little bit more messy, a little bit more fast and loose, just to get my workspace cleaned up, because I want to work on other stuff. I want to paint the gremlins that I got from Warp. So today I won't let perfect be the enemy of good, and I'll just get stuff done. Having a huge D6 with golden skulls I think will be awesome for D&D or other role-playing games, where sometimes you have like lair actions or big monster abilities that get recharged if you roll a specific number on a D6. So letting my players roll that die and then see the look on their face when they roll the 5 or 6 again, that's awesome, and I love to do that in style, so this die will be perfect for that. So while that dries, I take some Typhus Corrosion, which is a Games Workshop Citadel technical paint. And on this guy, who's already had the oil wash treatment from back when I did my Sin Eater, I apply this pretty liberally. And in the same spirit of being fast and loose and kind of messy, I just slather this on here. I've got a little sponge, this little makeup sponge. I use this to kind of feather out the transition, get it to blend in a little bit more. And I put this everywhere I want some texture. So in all of the recesses, everywhere where like rain and rust would gather and start to corrode the metal, everywhere where grime and dirt and soot will naturally gather. I'm imagining this to be maybe a sentient creature, but maybe I can also use this just as like scattered terrain or like objective marker for a game. So this will probably be out in the elements quite a lot. This is why I want to really play with the rust effects on this mini. I think it's so fun to have such a big canvas of just one material. Usually minis will feature some metal, but they won't be made exclusively out of it. So this was a fun opportunity to really go wild with the rust effects and give it a go and really go crazy with it. Letting that dry for now. And we'll return to that later. For now, I'll get this dark wash and I'll apply this to the golden dye. I thought I could maybe just like put this in the recesses, smear this all over, but it didn't really want to stay in the recesses that much. So I ended up doing 2 coats, and the first coat, I really just slather this on. We're staying messy today. We're just doing a bit of messy work to get stuff from almost finished to finished. And while I've got this wash out, let's wash these skulls on the first die we did as well. These could use some definition. In the original paint scheme, they didn't have any wash applied at all, so that's already will be an upgrade. And let's move that aside and go back to this guy who is dry now. And you can see the Typhus Corrosion is pretty subtle. So I'm gonna add Mournfang Brown, which is a Citadel brown paint. You know, other paints are great and are available. This is just what I have and what I use. I really like the Army Painter Fanatics range as well. And so with this step, we kind of just want to color the rust texture that we applied earlier, just applying a very thin coat of this and then going over it with a lighter orange as well. You see the first coat is still not really dry, so I'm using kind of almost like a wet blending technique as well to make these oranges kind of flow into each other, and always using my fingers or a little bit of sponge or a paper towel to wick away some of the excess and absorb it if I think it's too much. I'm putting it in all the rivets, everywhere where water would gather, rust will form as well. And also just have fun with it, you know? It's not supposed to be a scientific model, it's supposed to be art and for fun. So just do what looks good to you and trust your intuition. And this is what our golden dye looks like after the wash is dried. I like it, it's looking pretty tarnished. You can see I went back in with a second coat of the wash to really darken the recesses. And then I tried to roll the 6 so you could see the symbol, and it took forever. But I finally managed to roll one. You can see I almost picked it up. There you go. That's the 6. I really like this spiral. I guess that's the nature of randomness, and also maybe I have unbalanced the dye by burning a spiral into it. I'm taking some reference images off of Google to see how close we are to like a realistic rust, and I noticed that a lot of the time the metal itself will become quite reddish instead of just being like a cooler metal tone. So I decided to go over the whole model and apply sort of a glaze of this Sigvald burgundy color. It's kind of a rusty red. And so I thinned this way down, and with glazing, usually the trick is to not let the paint be super wet. You want to kind of absorb most of the moisture from your brush so you can kind of apply a very thin layer on top, which was really hard because this surface is quite glossy. But I think I managed in the end, and it gave the whole model much more of a cohesive look, I think much closer to the reference images I was looking at. And to really give the rust that final punch of color and contrast, I chose a very light orange. I think this is Scrag Brown, and I applied this only in select spots where I wanted some more color highlights. And I imagine this is like the very tip of corrosion. This is almost like the most corroded spots on the model, and you'll see it allows me to also do some streaking and some drippy spots, and I really treat this model as a canvas, like I said earlier, and have fun with it. Treat it like a piece of art. For the golden dye, I decided to add a final dry brush of a lighter gold just to make those edges pop a little bit more. You can see it there, it's very subtle, but I think I like how that looks. So I'm calling both of these dyes done. This one, nothing special, but it gets the job done. And sometimes that's all you need. In the reference images, I noticed that the very, very bright yellow spots looked like more yellow than orange, and my brightest spots were quite orange. So I tried to introduce some more yellow in here, and it's subtle. I used a lot of water to kind of thin it down. And then I applied an all-over dry brush of my original metal color, and I would not recommend you do this. Actually, I think this was the wrong call. It looked better before, but it still looks good now. And you know, that's what happens if you go fast and loose, if you decide you aren't gonna spend ages deliberating over every little decision and you just wanna get somewhere. Sometimes you'll make a decision and later on you'll think, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But you know, I think it still looks cool. And if at some point in the future I decide that I wanna repaint it, I can still do that. But for now, I can use this in games and it'll be more than fine and my players won't complain. So the final step is just adding these manual edge highlights with a very bright silver. This isn't necessarily super realistic. Rust oftentimes will matte quite a bit and won't look as shiny. Something would have to kind of like rub off on the edges to get this abrasive texture. But I think it helps the model read on the tabletop and add some visual interest. So going back to what I said before about this being art, you are allowed to make creative decisions that aren't necessarily realistic. And I finished up with a wash of Agrax Earthshade all over to kind of dull it down a little bit more, and then I let that dry. So there you go. 3 unfinished projects from my desk, and we got them all done in one afternoon. You know, sometimes projects can seem daunting at first, or maybe they've been staring at you for a bunch of weeks and you're not quite sure how to approach them. And in that case, I would say just go for it, you know, just send it, see where you end up. And if you don't like it, you can always restart. But I think most of the time you'll find that you're quite happy with the result, or at least you're happy enough to move on.